You hear a lot about self-defense, about making and enforcing boundaries. There are self-help books about it, there are ministries preaching about it, you have counselors about self-defense, you can take self-defense courses, you even have educations, I believe, and institutions about self-defense. But what's behind all that self-defense and making boundaries? Let me tell you what's behind. It's all about self-validation. It has nothing to do with avoiding real life danger. Oh yes, I've just said it. Behind all that self-defense mythology, because I call it mythology, and also the myth of enforcing boundaries, there is self-validation that it's being preserved. It has nothing to do with avoiding real life danger. Let me explain why. I'm going to give an illustration here. You have Johanna, or let's call her Joe. Joe is 28 years old. She's a small woman. She's very thin, and she lives in Rotterdam. But in Joe's neighborhood, there are many crimes happening. So Joe one day decided that she is going to carry a knife with her. And she has been carrying a knife around for years, since she was 22. But here's the thing. None of the criminals that were committing crimes even knew Joe existed. Joe perceived the environment to be dangerous, so she thought she was going to take measures to defend herself. So what was her focus? To preserve comfort. But here's the thing, did it ever happen that a criminal attacked her and robbed her? No. So why is she carrying a knife? And here's another thing. Her mind is fixated on the knife wherever she is. Wherever she is, whether she's in a metro, whether she's in a bus, or whether she was at college, in the back of her mind, she always thinks of the knife. What if someone knows I have a knife with me? What are they going to say? What if the police found out? Because in the Netherlands, if you carry a knife with you, I believe for every centimeter you get a few months in jail. I believe it's something like that. That may have changed, but that's how it was several years back. And what if a situation happens? Then am I going to pick the knife out of my bag? I mean, all of these things were in the back of her mind. She wasn't aware of it, but it all played in her mind. So she became burdened. That means that she was distracted from enjoying life and participating in daily life. Why? Because she wanted to defend herself. Now let's go to another example. You have this guy that he used to run away when there were people looking weird at him. And he thought one day, man, I'm a man, so I need to stop running away. He went to a martial artist who came all the way from Hong Kong, and he learned spiritual principles. Well, it was something in agreement with Christ. We all know it's paranormal stuff. He learned paranormal tricks that he could do with his mind to enable his body to make movements that he normally couldn't do. So one day he was walking by, and there were two guys who were looking weird at him. And he just said hi to them. They talked, who the heck do you think you are? They tried to look for a fight. Man, he knocked them both out very quickly. The next day he was walking down the street. Those two guys saw him and they just ran off. So the guy thought, man, this is great. But hold on a minute. The fact that he knocked them out so quickly scared a lot of people. And now the news spread around that he knocked two guys out very quickly. So now you had people around saying they didn't want a guy that violent around. So now he had people eyeing on him, keeping an eye on him. Before he never went to the club. Now he's going to the club. You know why? He's not frightened anymore to face to face bullies at the club. So one day at the club, there was this guy that used to touch a girl. The girl didn't want it, and well, this guy decided, not the guy that was touching the girl, but the guy that learned all those martial tricks, decided, okay, I'm going to teach this guy a lesson. Man, and he knocked the guy so hard, but the guy ended up in the hospital, in coma. So, the guy that learned all those martial arts, that never avoided a fight, and he won every fight because, man, he had paranormal knowledge, he ended up in jail. He ended up having a record. And there's another thing. You have a group of people who've learned how to knock people out and all of that, but then suddenly one of them is being hit, and it happens suddenly. They had no chance to react, to practice all they've learned. Because that's what you need to understand. When you're practicing a martial arts sport, by the way, I'm not telling you to quit martial arts if you're doing it or anything like that, but what I'm telling you, when you're practicing it, you're practicing a sport, you're practicing a discipline, and there are rules over there. And if you're good in discipline, good for you. You can practice your bodily health, you can exercise. There's nothing wrong with that. But understand, out there, when violence occurs, it happens chaotically. And there are no rules. And most of the time, when people begin to use violence, it's because of emotional pain that they want to act out. Those are people who are mentally not alright. So someone that's mentally not alright, they carry danger with them. So if you deal with them, you are participating in that danger. Won't it be better to avoid the danger? Now look, if someone tries to grab you, then of course you can use force to free yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Or if someone tries to kidnap a child, of course you can use force to free the child. There's nothing wrong with that. But to put in your mind that you, by your own strength, by your own abilities, are going to defend yourself, that's a trap. And that brings me to the trap of boundaries. Now understand me wrong. Don't understand me wrong here. There are things that should not happen. Okay? There are things that you should prohibit. Okay, if you have your house and you don't want people to smoke there, you can make a prohibition. Nobody smokes here. Why? Because if people begin to smoke, it's going to attach to the walls, to the furniture, and it's unhealthy. If you have a small kid and the kid wants to touch the stove, that's dangerous. You can say, you're not touching the stove. In daily life, regulations and prohibitions are needed in order for people to remain safe, in order for the community to operate. We understand that. But we often call those prohibitions boundaries. No, they're just practical prohibitions. And you have to be happy you have those practical prohibitions. But when you talk about boundaries, you talk about preserving something, because the word boundary has the word bound in it, the stem word bound. And stem word bound comes from bind. And to bind something means that you are keeping something captive, you're holding on to something. So when you enforce a boundary, you are in bondage. Because a boundary has to do with something that has been bound. You are preserving a bondage. Now, what is the bondage you're preserving? Self-validation. You don't want people to call you with your first name. Why? Because you want them to validate that they are in a decent relationship towards you. It's self-validation. You know what? Centuries ago, there were no last names. People just called each other with their given names. But because you grew up in an environment that taught you need to call people that you don't speak to frequently at a last name, you've adapted that. So now you want validation for your agreement. That's why you become upset when people use your first name. Now hold on a minute. You becoming upset, you becoming angry because people call you with your first name, that you deem ought not to call you with your first name, you're the one getting angry. You're the one feeling that pain, and you're the one generating that negative energy, not the other. So who's at fault? You. You are at fault. But now you project the pain on someone else and says that you don't like an individual. Now you don't want to see them, and now you're enforcing violence against them. You tell them you don't like them, you don't want to see them around, you begin to think bad about them. It's violence. But you say you're protecting your boundaries. I have boundaries. Yes, you are in bondage. And here's the thing, you've lost perspective, because by operating in that negativity, you're generating a lot of waste energy around you, and that waste energy attracts demons. I mean, did you ever evaluate your expectation? When it comes to boundaries, people have expectations. There's an outcome they want to preserve, but often they don't check whether that outcome is even worth it, or if that outcome even exists. Look, if there's something you don't want to happen, you can be transparent about it. However, just because you can't stand something, or you have something, an outcome you're attached to, that does not give you the right to enforce imaginary limitations upon others. You are in bondage, and now you're binding someone else. Do you see what's happening here? It's a trap. Here's the thing. If you have a narcissist that's been exploiting you and you were vulnerable, look, the narcissist knows he's vulnerable. He also saw your vulnerability, so he exploited your vulnerability. And you were not aware of it. And a narcissist doesn't want to acknowledge he's wrong, ever. That is his boundary. He wants to preserve self-validation. He wants to feel good about himself. So anyone that says anything that may endanger the self-validation, he acts out again. That is the boundary he enforces. And it's this boundary that exploited you. And now you were victimized by a narcissist, and now you say you need to set boundaries against narcissists. Hold on a minute. You are using the same method of the narcissist to protect yourself against a narcissist. So now you are in agreement with narcissists, while you are against narcissists. Do you see the trap here? What should happen is you should be aware that narcissists exist, how they operate, and how to avoid them, or how to overcome them. That's what you need to learn. But no, the narcissist has boundaries that he enforces at your expense, and now you want to do the same thing in order to feel validated. You're doing the same thing the narcissist was doing. So what is the difference? And many of the expectations you have are also narcissistic, but you can't see that because you only focus on your own comfort. If you have an aunt that often calls and she talks a lot on the phone, that's just your aunt talking a lot. You can tell her, "Aunt, thank you for calling, but I need to work now," and end the phone if you don't want her to talk that long. There's no need for you to become upset. We're saying, "Oh, this woman calls often and talks the whole time, takes my whole time. She thinks it's so important." Hold on a minute. There is no such thing as your time. That's an imaginary construct of culture. So your anger and rage against your aunt talking that much on the phone is itself narcissistic. And you putting her in a negative category as someone who thinks she's so important that robs your time, that's a projection. So you're operating as a narcissist. But you think I'm just enforcing boundaries and being honest. No, you're operating like a narcissist. I am not saying you are a narcissist, but you operate like one. This whole thing of self-defense and enforcing boundaries, it's a trap. It's a demonic trap to keep you in the negative. And if you are in the negative, it draws you further in the negative. That's what it is. So, look, when people in the world talk about boundaries, they often don't know what they're talking about. Look, if you see that something is dangerous and you don't want it to happen, gain understanding how to deal with the situation, how to avoid the situation. And if you can't avoid the situation, learn how to overcome and endure the situation to get out. Imagining, and let me say, enforcing imaginary limitations, after you will need force or violence to do that, that's going to increase negativity. And here's the thing, about self-defense, by the way, I do not condemn you if you if you went to self-defense courses. I don't condemn you if you went to martial arts. I'm not condemning you at all. But just understand, what you learn at those schools are practical only in the context of what the schools have taught you. In the real life situations out there, violence happens suddenly and very quickly. And you're often shocked by what happened, and often when you try to react, more hits are happening. Look, let me give an example. Someone that is violent, because understand is violent people, they are desperately seeking for self-validation. They will desperately want to feel good about themselves, so they look for a target to release their negativity and anger upon, so that they are relieved. It's that relief that they're looking for. So when someone that's violent approaches you, it's because he sees an opportunity. He sees some vulnerability he can exploit. So the fact he approaches you already is a sign that they are intending danger. The best thing to do is to remain calm with such an individual, to talk through, ask what's wrong with them, what they want, and then you depart from them. The thing is, if you learn that you have to enforce boundaries, you may be straight with them, that you don't take their attitude, and you know what, you're right. But here's the thing. They are desperately looking for an outlet. In their minds there is war, and they're desperately looking for validation to win. So when you resist them, even though it's a right thing, they're going to perceive that as a validation that there is a war. They're going to perceive that as an approval to lash out. Why? Because violent people, they are desperately looking for self-validation. They're operating operating in complete selfishness without any regard to others. Such an individual, they just want to release their bad energies. That's what's all about. So the best thing to do is to operate in the supernatural, so that when such people are near you, they become uncomfortable being around you. Because you need to understand, someone that's violent will only approach a target if they feel comfortable in leaking out towards that individual. The moment they see a potential target, but they feel uncomfortable around the target, they're not going to approach that individual, because they sense that if they even try something, they will be dead. Because when someone decides to approach you because they want to release their waste energies, they have the intention to kill you. That's what they have. They're just minutes away from becoming a physical killer, a physical murderer. So the best thing to do is just to learn how to overcome bad energy. If you learn how to overcome negative energy, you've overcome violent people right there. Look, let's say you have a young woman who's quite a bit small, who's not very fast physically, but she operates in the supernatural. If there's a rapist around who also wants to leak out, and he sees us, a very weak woman, thinks, okay, I can do something, the moment he comes near, that supernatural energy that woman is operating in, it makes the guy so uncomfortable, and the demons around the guy are so frightened that the guy thinks, who is this creep? And the guy begins to run away. The girl, in this case, didn't have a gun, didn't need to know how to defend herself physically, didn't need to enforce boundaries, she just operated in the supernatural. And let me tell you, there are many people out there who never face physical violence. You know why? Because they have a paranormal charm. They have a charm upon them, and that charm blocks the negative outlet of other people. So they go to the club, they walk at night in the streets, nobody does anything to them, because the flow of negative energy towards them is blocked. And if the negative energy cannot flow towards them, the violent individual cannot be attracted to them, nor feel comfortable with leaking out towards them. They know that the spiritual is practical and the spiritual is relevant. A lot of folks, they follow their own understanding how to use their mental and physical power to deliver themselves. No, that is a trap. That will lead you more and more into darkness. Well, that's all for now. I recorded this video at night before going to sleep, so if I don't sound that fluent, forgive me, as long as you understand the message I'm saying here. Enforcing boundaries and self-defense are a trap, a very big trap that most people can't see for what they really are. And most of the time, I'm saying there are times when you practice enforcing boundaries and self-defense that there are no benefits at all, that you draw even more violence to yourself. And the times that it does work, the benefits are short-lived. The true defense is to operate in the supernatural. And look, people in the world that don't operate in the supernatural, they look for charms. And it's because they are looking for charms that things cannot flow towards them. Because violence is all about leaking out negative energy. So make sure that you are not operating in the negative, because when you operate in darkness and they have darkness, that attracts one another. If you're operating in the light, in the supernatural, they may feel threatened by you and may decide they want to take it out on you, but they will find out sooner or later that it's not going to happen. That's why as a believer, you ought to walk by faith. About me, look, since I was a young age, I understood that the whole thing of enforcing boundaries most of the time is useless when you're dealing with violent people, because violent people, they are violent. They are there to violate. They just want to violate. They just want to release that bad energy, and they don't care how that energy affects others. They don't want the effect upon them. They just want to get rid of it, and they don't care whom is affected by their leaking out. They always have a reason for what they're doing. So, enforcing boundaries with such people is impractical, is useless, and is even dangerous. Learn how to overcome. I'm not telling you to choose a paranormal charm, no, because that will have other dangers. Learn how to operate in the supernatural. That being said, be at peace.